I just want to chill right now. Let's watch that. Let's go just chatting. I feel so chill right now. I love that. I mean, the stream is going to be long enough and fuck me up long enough. Let's watch this 20 minutes. And then we play Steel Division Historical. I would love to find a teammate for Steel Division, man. Someone I know, though, from chat. Like, I wish Altoni knew the game more or something. Someone that I trust and know, but hard to find someone. What is this?
Countless examples of architectural and cultural greatness in humanity's
Whoever said the Ravens Fetch
past.
Exile card is wrong, that rule has been changed. Yeah, that's not true. Seriously, you want good documentary to watch Lemino? Yes, I will. Jesus, I will.
Are permanently lost to the modern world.
What are the 7 ancient world wonders? The Lighthouse of Alexandria. The Pyramids of Gizeh. The Zeus statue on Olympus. The Mausoleum of a guy in Babylon. The Gardens of Babylon or some shit. I don't know. 2 more. Hey, I'm actually good. The Colors of Rhodos and... Stonehenge, you fucking idiot. Huh? What's the final one? The Bibliothèque of Alexandria? I don't think that's not true. The library is not a... No. The Great Wall, man. You guys are fucking uneducated as hell. Come on. The Halicarnassos.
Reduced to dust throughout long centuries, or destroyed in
Catch up.
upheavals, both
This looks
natural
like... Dude, you guys built that in Minecraft! The Sparta faction of Minecraft legit built this! You copied that!
and
Copy
anthropogenic
Sparta.
in nature, or sometimes both. The 7
That's the
wonders
mausoleum,
of the
right? Or some
ancient
shit. I don't
world
actually know.
are perhaps the greatest examples of such lost beauty.
Minecraft Wonders of the World.
Located in the eastern Mediterranean,
The Colors of Rhodos
these
must have been...
legendary wonders
Did you know
have
that the
long
Colors of Bravos in Game of
captivated
Thrones is based on the
and
Colors of
inspired the
Rhodos?
imagination. Welcome to our video giving an
Building
overview
appearance. This reminds me so... Why does this video remind me so hard of our Minecraft server? This is legit Kemet
of the
in
7
Minecraft.
wonders.
And what better sponsor can there be for a video on the ancient wonders of the world than Paradox and Imperator? Rome. Paradox is famous for supporting its titles, and the new free update called Marius will be released today. The new content pack called Heirs of Alexander adds so much new stuff to the game, with a heavy focus on the successors of Alexander the Great. This includes unique mission trees for the Antigonids, Seleucids, Ptolemies, Macedon and Thrace, Diadochi-themed mission objectives, and new events available to all of the successor kingdoms, new deities, music and treasures for the Hellenic states, and our new favorite feature, the Wonder Designer, which allows players to
cool. That's actually epic, man.
create their own world wonders with unique regional or
Wonder
statewide
Designer,
bonuses.
that's actually cool.
If you like this video, you have got to try the Wonder Designer. It's worth it. Support our channel and one of our favorite game publishers, Paradox, by trying the new free update and getting the Heirs of Alexander content pack
and
via
I
the
just sit
link in
here
the description.
having huge fucking balls.
The first of our marvels is the most mysterious of them all, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Again, it's so crazy. Everything this guy shows, you guys have built on the Minecraft server. There was a guy who did the Hanging Gardens on the Minecraft server.
Our classical
Where's my phone?
sources on the Great Gardens, such as Diodorus Siculus, Strabo and Josephus, themselves drew from older writings which are now lost. In one of those vanished sources, a Babylonian priest of Marduk, known as Berossus, wrote how King Nebuchadnezzar II once wed a princess Amytis of the Median Empire. This was probably a diplomatic arrangement, and Amytis seems to have grown understandably homesick, a fact which Nebuchadnezzar attempted to remedy in spectacular fashion by constructing elevated gardens and filling them with trees from his wife's
What a
place
fucking
of
view that
origin.
must have been like.
Although widespread,
I still always think that these things are not as impressive as we think. Like when you watch movies nowadays, they're far more impressive. I think that everything in ancient time is 50% less than what our brain thinks, but it was still probably very,
in many of the ancient
still
sources,
very
this tale
impressive.
and the Gardens of Babylon are almost certainly a legend without any historical basis,
Oh.
passed down and distorted
There
over
are
time.
no
Nevertheless, it does
basis
contain
for
the
this.
truth that ornate royal gardens were used by ancient kings to display their wealth, ability to create lush beauty within arid environments.
This city in the background legit looks like the Minecraft city Babylon that you guys
And
made.
for luxury. A
Legit
prime
same, dude.
feature of such gardens, for example, were trees possessing leaves which sheltered people of note from the scorching sun. There is no evidence of elaborate garden constructions of this kind at Babylon. However, it is speculated by historians such as Stephanie Daly that the hanging gardens did exist, but not in Babylon.
I'd wish, man, I always say this. I hope that one day, like in Assassin's Creed, the thing they have in Assassin's Creed, that you could just go back in time and just walk through that city, smell it, feel it. What is it like walking through a city at that time? Like, I'm just a ghost. I can't interact with anyone. Just fucking.
Instead,
Must
she
have been
began the
obviously it's
now
impossible,
dominant
you monkey,
hypothesis
but
that they were
how epic that
constructed
would
in
be.
the Neo-Assyrian capital of Nineveh by King Sennacherib, who
Probably
reigned
doesn't smell
over
so well.
vast swaths of the Near East from 705 to 681 BC. If these hanging gardens of Nineveh were indeed a reality, then their destruction would have likely come in 612 BC, the year in which Assyria's long subjugated empire rose up against it, descended on the imperial capital, and put it to utter ruin.
Smells like falafel and hummus.
After 2 Persian invasions in the first decades of the 5th century were defeated, the golden age of classical Greece, and particularly Athens, began in earnest.
I have like
New
pain
and
in my
more
stomach.
sophisticated forms of culture were
Time to take off
pioneered
my
in
pants,
this
though.
civilizational blossoming, including the iconic Greek play, philosophical concepts which remain with us today,
There you go.
and crucially,
Look at this
grander
Audi. No one
styles
cares,
of
man.
architecture and
I'm sorry.
sculpture.
This
To
guy's
enhance
sending me
the
random
hallowed
fucking
shrine
Audi
of Zeus
video,
at Olympia
thinking I
in
will
the
click it.
Peloponnese, the governing council there chose to build a large temple inside which an already existing image of the god existed
Too many cops?
and could be
Yeah, looks
protected
like it.
from the elements. However, the classical age's awe-inspiring tastes demanded something beyond a small cult object, so an exiled Athenian sculptor was hired to create an ideal image of the king of the gods, Pheidias.
I wonder what that must have looked like. Again, I'm pretty sure it's not that as impressive as we think. You know, we are humans in 2020. When you watch Game of Thrones, the colors of Bravos, that's wow. I think that the statue of Zeus was not that super impressive. It was probably
Later
much smaller
Roman
than you would
authors.
imagine.
The sculptor's inspiration for this great project was Homer,
Because back in the day, it
and
was much easier
specifically
to impress
verses
people.
528 to 530 in the Iliad. In these particular passages, he talks of an austere Zeus, the movement of whose head caused the whole of Mount Olympus to shake. Using techniques developed first during his work in Athens, Pheidias
Dude, how skilled you must be to fucking do the ch-ch-ch from that stuff.
completed a spectacular 42-foot
These
tall
guys were fucking
representation
talented.
of Zeus sitting on a godly throne.
Damn.
In his right hand, the figure holds an icon of the goddess Nike, and in the left is grasped a scepter crowned by an eagle.
Damn.
So huge did the work sit in
That
its
shit must have
temple
been
that if the
so
god
impressive.
were to
What
stand,
happened to it?
it would definitely destroy its housing. For almost 1,000 years following its construction, the statue amazed and awed
1,000
visitors
years.
who held Zeus divine.
Oh yeah, an earthquake happened, I remember. An earthquake.
However, when the Roman Empire instituted Christianity as its state religion in 391, Theodosius I implemented laws which led to the sanctuary's decline. The statue itself was eventually carted off to adorn a palace in Constantinople, where it was destroyed by fire in 462
I thought it
AD.
was an earthquake.
3
Fake news in the chat, everybody. Earthquake. Apparently it's not true.
more of the ancient
It was the
wonders
Turks.
could be visited across the Bosphorus on Asia Minor's western coast, one of which historian Edward Gibbon described in poetic fashion. The arts of Greece and the wealth of Asia had conspired to erect that sacred and magnificent structure. Successive empires, the Persian, Macedonian, and Roman, revered its sanctity and
I'm
enriched
totally
its
overeating, man.
splendor. This particular praise is reserved for none other than the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. First constructed in the 6th century BC reign of and patronized by the prodigious wealth of Lydian king Croesus, the temple was an intricately decorated, glittering rectangular structure surrounded by 127 beautiful 60-foot-high fluted columns in the Ionic style.
So much work.
To further emphasize its importance, the main platform was elevated slightly above ground level, reached by any potential suppliant by perfectly crafted marble steps.
Wow.
In addition to
these marble people must have been so talented, man.
Mixed with the Hellenic spirit in
another
which
building
so
that was in the Minecraft
infused,
server, man. You guys
so-called
need to come up with your own ideas.
Is rightly famed for the myriad historical figures it is connected to. According to legend, King Croesus was about to be sacrificed by the soldiers of Cyrus the Great, but then the skies suddenly opened up and rain began to fall. The Persians relented and Croesus was saved. The temple's patron goddess failed utterly to intervene in a similar manner when Herostratus, who notoriously desired fame immortal by any means necessary, burned the sanctuary down in 356, supposedly on the very evening Alexander the Great was born. Plutarch justifies her absence by explaining how the goddess was dealing with just this special birth. It was tenaciously rebuilt soon after,
quiet, isn't it?
But in the midst of Rome's imperial crisis, Ephesus's Artemisium was destroyed by piratical Gothic raiders in 262. Although it was semi-rebuilt in the respite of the early 4th century, early church father St. John Chrysostom completely leveled the pagan structure in 402.
Pagan structure.
Almost exactly 100 miles south of the Grand Temple of Artemis sat the great Carian city of Halicarnassus. At that time, this Greek realm was a powerful satrapy kingdom within the Achaemenid Empire, so its ruler Mausolus was a Persian satrap as well as a monarch of his own realm. He moved his capital from the old Carian royal seat at Mylassa to the ancient harbour city of Halicarnassus, refounding it after a period of neglect. There Mausolus also wed his sister,
Isn't this his mausoleum or some
who
shit?
along with her husband began work on
look
a
how fucking
lavish
epic
tomb
this looks.
for
I
the
want to
dynasty.
take a walk there, Jesus.
When the Carian ruler did eventually perish in 353 BC, with the work unfinished, Artemisia ensured it was completed before her death 2 years later. Constructed using a skillful synergy of Hellenic, Persian and Egyptian architecture, this mausoleum, as it came to be known in reference to its patron, comprised a huge 440-foot
that's where the name mausoleum comes from. Oh,
podium, topped with Ionic columns and a pyramidal roof.
It's based on that
Decorating
fucker.
the intricate
Jesus,
work,
that's epic.
where a number of
you mentioned you're so
statues
famous,
and
man.
reliefs,
A word is
the
named
most
after you for
notable
fucking
which
thousands of years.
was one in the image of Mausolus riding a Herculean chariot placed atop the mausoleum's
Isn't that
roof.
shit on the Brandenburg Gate?
As one of the longer-lasting ancient wonders, Mausolus's tomb remained standing proudly throughout the Macedonian and Roman empires and further into the Crusader age. Consigned to irrelevance long before, the colonnade and upper section of Mausolus's resting place.
Crazy how time, man. We're talking about thousands of years here, man. Isn't that crazy? Like how much has happened on this planet. There was the Greeks and then the Romans and then the Christians and then that and then this and then that. It fucking blows your mind, right?
Collapsed by an earthquake at some point in the
That
early
shit got
second millennium.
earthquaked.
However, like so many other artifacts of the ancient past, the mausoleum was condemned to oblivion by the Crusaders. Seeking to refortify their nearby fortress at Bodrum in 1494, the Knights of St. John used a significant amount of the remaining mausoleum stone to bolster the fortifications,
Bye-bye, you
including
Christian
a number
now, boy.
of slabs
Bye.
depicting the Amazonomachy, the
Unbelievable, these
mythical
Christians.
battle between Greeks and the warrior woman Amazons. The inner chamber was also looted in the aftermath, but a number of treasures were eventually carted off to the British Museum during later excavations,
The
where
fucking
they
British
remain
again.
to this day.
Wow, you can go to
conclude
Britain
our
and
journey
see
around the
artifacts from that
Anatolian
time. That is
seaboard,
so cool,
we
man.
go to the island of Rhodes. At the very tip,
That shit is
overlooking
legit.
one of the
Bravos and
great
Game of Thrones.
Rhodian
It's all
harbours
based on-
for hundreds of years,
Bravos is based
was
on
a
this.
massive statue of the Greek sun god Helios, patron deity of the island and city. Its name, as almost everyone knows, was the Colossus of Rhodes.
That must have been so epic, man. Imagine you're a young trader and you go to Rhodes to trade furs or some shit, and the Colossus of Rhodes is on the horizon,
known
man.
as the Diadochi Wars.
Fucking epic, man.
This continued until a deadly, unstable balance of power began to emerge. Among those powers, the Antigonids, Antigonus I the One-Eyed and his son Demetrius, were unquestionably the most powerful, opposed by a coalition
Isn't the British Museum full of stolen artifacts?
Ptolemy
Isn't any museum full of stolen artifacts?
In 307, at the very zenith of Antigonus's power, Rhodes refused to join his war against Ptolemy.
But what means stolen, right? Something that has been taken 600 years ago, is that still fucking considered stolen?
Of Rhodes by Demetrius in 305 BC. Despite Demetrius's skill, Rhodes survived the siege and then sold Demetrius's siege engines for funds to create a grand monument to their victory, the Colossus. After a significant time of preparation, Rhodes's appointed sculptor, Caries of Lindos, and his bronze casters constructed the giant 30-meter tall statue between 294 and 282 BC when it was finally completed.
He was not
Unlike
in the beginning.
The Colossus's literary clone in Game of Thrones, the Rhodian real thing did not bestride the harbour entrance.
Ah, it wasn't at the harbour entrance. I thought that. I just learned something.
Unfortunately, the metal and stone giant did not stand for long. In 226, it and the city in which it stood was racked by a massive earthquake, which broke Helios at the knee and sent him tumbling down, destroying many houses. Ptolemy III, ruler of Egypt at the time, offered to bankroll a restoration, but the Rhodians declined due to the ban of an oracle. So, in its collapsed state, the Colossus lay where it fell for 900 years until the Arabs plundered it in 654 AD.
For 900 years, the Colossus of Rhodes just lays there, man.
Across the Mediterranean coast, in the primeval kingdom of Egypt,
that's
our
unimaginable.
penultimate wonder goes a long way to prove the assertion that Alexander the Great had some involvement in almost every lofty occurrence after his time. In 332 BC, during the Macedonian invasions, Alexander annexed Egypt, including the offshore island of Pharos, from the Persian Empire. Marching north from the old pharaonic capital of Memphis, Alexander came across a small fishing village known as Rakotis, located on a brilliant site. As the new pharaoh of Egypt, he ordered that a mighty city be constructed there, from which he could look across the sea at his homeland. It was the first and most famous of many cities to bear the king's name, Alexandria.
What a fucking alpha chat Alexander the Great was. That guy was so big, he has the villages and cities named after him, man. That's so fucking, you're so immortal that way.
Fashion, the king appointed his talented court architect, Dinocrates of Rhodes, who eagerly got to the task. Plans for the city's layout were drawn up in the latest Hellenistic grid style developed by Hippodamus of Miletus. With those blueprints to work on, the construction of this so-called Queen of Cities began immediately. As Alexandria slowly but surely came into being under Ptolemy's supervision during the Diadochi Wars, a wealthy Ptolemaic courtier and diplomat known as Sostratus provided, at least in part, the 800 silver talents necessary to fund his city's most famous piece of artistic genius mixed with practical usage, the lighthouse, or Pharos of Alexandria, named so because of the island upon which it was constructed. Just over 100 meters tall in total, the Pharos was almost certainly a three-tiered structure, decreasing in scale
Alexander
from
died
bottom
during
to top.
the immortality event.
The first was a rectangular segment of 60 meters,
Jesus
above
Christ.
which was a cylindrical tower of a further 30 meters. The weight of the upper structure was held by a similar cylinder structure within the lower tier. The lighthouse was capped with a summit, crowned by both a great beacon and statue of Zeus Soter, Zeus the Savior. The resilient Pharos and its brilliant seaward light survived relatively intact until the later part
this
of
must
the
have been
first
so
millennium
beautiful
AD,
seeing
when
this
it
in
was
real life,
badly
man.
damaged by a series of earthquakes.
And now all I see is just beton and
Arab
dog poop
traveller
everywhere,
Ibn
man.
Battuta visited Alexandria in 1349, and according to him, Pharos was in such a bad state that it was not possible to enter it or climb up to the doorway.
Oh, fuck.
The final wonder on our list,
Maybe the
Khufu's
most
Great
impressive, man. These fucking pyramids
is the
are
oldest
insane.
and only one to survive. The Great Pyramid was the culmination
That
of
thing still
centuries worth
exists,
of
man. Think
research
about
and
that.
advancements in architecture during the Old Kingdom. Its predecessors were the rectangular mud brick mastaba and the following step pyramid, the most famous of which housed the sacred remains of 3rd dynasty pharaoh Djoser at Saqqara.
That shit is all around Middle America, man, and South America.
This
They're
structure
fucking
was the
connected,
very
I'm telling
first
you,
to
they're
be
fucking
constructed
aliens.
entirely out of stone. Sophisticated construction techniques and innovations continued to advance apace as the
Wonder how many
Third
slaves
Dynasty
Dubai,
came to an end.
Egypt
With
used there,
the
man.
notable advent of the pyramid complex,
Jesus
consisting
Christ.
of the magnificent tomb itself, adjacent mortuary temples, causeways, sphinxes, and other related buildings
That's
and tributes
insane.
to the dead god king.
Where's Brendan
The
Fraser?
second monarch to rule over the 4th dynasty, Khufu, or Cheops as his name is Hellenized, commissioned his vizier Heman to construct a royal tomb for him as well, selecting the site of
Fucking
Giza near
assholes,
the
man. They
edge
just built
of
their
the
own
Libyan
tombs, man,
desert.
and everybody dies.
His smooth-sided construct
Look
was the
at that.
first and grandest pyramid to occupy the area,
Fuck
but
off.
far from the last. Dedicated Egyptian officials and workers undertaking corvée labor had the site leveled to provide an open section of ground for the work. Then, probably using nothing but astronomical observation, the orientation for each side was obtained. Contrary to modern expectations, this archaic method was in fact incredibly accurate, and the alignment error on each side is only a fraction of a degree.
Wow.
Heman oversaw the building process, a
These
process
fucking
which we're still not
builders
certain of
were so
4,500
clever.
years later.
And now we have
Historians
TikTok.
consider two main possibilities. Either that the Egyptians used ramps to encircle the grand structure as it gradually rose, or that they had a long ramp stretching out into the desert, extended as necessary as the pyramid ascended. However it was done,
Or was it
the
onions?
movement of stone blocks at minimum 5 tons in weight must have been a titanic effort.
Yeah, that's
When
insane.
that stone was in place, the entire pyramid was layered with uniform blocks of shimmering white limestone, giving Khufu's tomb an appropriately divine appearance.
That must have looked so
The labor
sick.
of Heman and all of his myriad technicians, engineers, and workers is so enduring that 4,500 years later, we can still visit
4,500
Giza
years.
and see the complex in its mostly intact state. So unfathomably ancient is the structure that an Arab proverb states that man fears time, yet time fears the pyramids. We always have more stories
Shit,
to
man, that
tell,
must be
so
fucking
make
epic
sure
being
you are
standing in front of
subscribed to
them.
our
Like you're
channel
touching a
and
stone
have
that has
pressed
been
the
around
bell
for
button. We would like to
4,500
express our
years, man. That must have